Talk about allowing people to treat you in a certain way. Paris says what you allow will continue is something that I've really taken away from these workshops. Thank you. And then I got a private message saying it's really, it's hard to relate to Zoe's philosophy. I know it's not ethical, but I don't want to stop, and it is hard to relate because, however, when we're in it, so this isn't a criticism, Zoe, because I'm using this, like that, there's a positive that we're having a really good time, so people then don't want to. We don't want to stop because it feels so good. Then we find all the justifiers. And what I can see in this is, their spouses definitely seeing others, it's their friendship, it's the children, we need to hold our marriage together. Right. It's quite interesting. Do I think people should work at marriages? Yes. But if you are seeing somebody else and lying, that's not working at your marriage. That's not trying to sort out what's happening in your marriage in different ways. So it's difficult. Karis, I was fine with it until I found out that he hadn't told her. I thought it was ethical, turns out it wasn't. Oh, I think, yeah. And I agree with that very much so. Zoe says, it's also not this person's place to say anything to the partner. I don't feel I should reach out to my partner's wife and let her know, but that's one of the reasons I don't wish to speak to her. But so that's a different situation. I understand that that's difficult for you and because of what's happened, and it's been pretty difficult. And we also can say, I would want to know if my partner was cheating on me. As a human being, I would much rather know than not know. We're all very different about that. But the problem is this person isn't going to change their mind. Really not going to change their minds. And that private message I got, I know that you're BOP, and it is hard to relate because about that similar, it's a hard relate because it is so similar. So when we're having a good time, we don't want to fucking give it up. However, the crash that we feel at the end of it feels really unfair. I knew this was going to happen. Why didn't I see sooner? I should have done this. I should have done that. And I think we then just have to look at the word ethical. We have to look at the word value, our values and morals. If you live a life different to the values you wish to hold up, you will end up being unhappy. If you live a life different to your values and morals and ethics, you will end up being hurt in some way. So that does happen. So what you've got to decide is, this isn't really about ethics. This is more about, I suppose it could be classed as ethics actually, is do you want to carry this on? Are you having a good time? And if you are, that's okay. But if we then just go with, I'm morally hate finding myself in another woman's role, I think what you've got to do is make a decision that you're okay with that. I think you have to own the decision and say, this feels really uncomfortable, but this is something I'm doing and this is something I'm going to do. Rather than always trying to question yourself. Because if that's what you want to do, then you will carry on doing it. As I say, you will look. So we get this thing going on in our head called confirmation bias, where you look for reasons to make it okay. And this man is saying to you very clearly, my spouse is seeing others. That justifies it. It's a tick. My spouse, they're very unsure of their supervisors, they're this, that. Look, we've all heard that thing of my wife doesn't understand me, my husband doesn't understand me, my wife doesn't give me enough sex, my husband doesn't give me enough sex. There are lots of reasons why people cheat, and there are underlying problems in a relationship if people are cheating in line, which is different to ethical monogamy. So Jim said, but you're not poly, you're the other woman in a cheating relationship. Yes, there is a difference in it, isn't there? Zoe says a lot of people cheat or go poly to keep their marriage together, but really they should work on their marriage and find out what's right for them or not. I agree, and Karis agreed with Jim. And Nancy says, what happens if it gives your marriage an extra kick? I have a writing about the dangers, and it's just warming up again a little bit, of that lovely feeling we get when we get that new relationship energy, which we all get when we go into a new relationship. I'm sure Lauren is looking for the link right now because he always does, and he's a bit of a hero. So you're going to have a read of that one when he shoves it up. The problem with new relationship energy is it's sold to be something that's really positive and really fantastic, and it is. And it is a wonderful feeling as long as it is done ethically. If it gives you a boost, that's fantastic. It's like taking an antidepressant for depression. It will help. It will make a difference. However, will it carry on making a difference? Because new relationship energy also fades in that new relationship. That means you're now going to have to look for a new one, and a new one, and a new one, and a new one, and it depends how we do it. So I think we have to be careful about that. Kinkware can be hard to face oneself like that, though, especially those in Bible. I completely agree. It's really hard if you're having the time. This person wrote, "I'm having the time of my life," which means they're having a fantastic time, and that will pull your ethics into question. It absolutely will. Lauren says, then there is the issue of informed consent, the partner being lied to is being deprived of their choices. I agree. And the person who has written this says, I am poly, I have a female partner who knows about the man. And that, so you are poly, and I totally appreciate that. I'm not saying you're not, and I absolutely wouldn't say you're not. What I'm saying is, the ethics then become in question when you look at what happens, how we feel about it. So hedonistic adaptation is a really good way of putting it, how we do it. And Lamori has kindly put up that writing about new relationship energy. I've just put a little bit of a warning label in there about what that's about, because we just talk about that positives. So sometimes somebody who cheats can have, oh, thank you very much, Lola. It's an excellent writing. Thanks. And thank you. So people are saying thank you to Noria. And Zoe says, you are poly, however you are the other woman is cheating in a relationship like I am. Yes, there is an element. So there are elements of we do what suits us. We always do that with our masculine ethics to a certain extent. We just do. So lots of people might have a void in their relationship. Lots of people might have something that's just missing. It might be the sex. It might be something else. It might be that the person really, really has got childhood trauma. It might be that the person has attachment disorders or attachment deficit disorder or attachment issues and all sorts of things. So there can be loads and loads of reasons. However, we also know, I mean, you can, if you want to look, Pink Hyacinth on FetLife, is that the right name? Pink Hyacinth on FetLife has a writing about all the things she's ever read about. I'm a little bit upset, I'm not a woman, where's my ego? But all the things that have really helped when it comes to going into ethical monogamy. And it's a really good writing with lots of links in. And she talks about Esther Perel quite a lot. And Esther Perel wrote a book called State of Affairs. And her stuff is also taken from the Gottman Institute, which I also recommend that people have a read of and why. So if we're pretty well adjusted, if we're okay, why do we cheat? Some of us are having a look at what we want out of life, so it's our self-exploration. But then the danger is if you're the other woman or the other man or the other person, is that once that person's done their self-exploration, they're done. And then you get hurt in that process. So that's potentially there as well. So that can happen. I'm looking for myself, I don't know who I am, I've lost my identity in this marriage. It's not actually marriage, you've just lost your identity. We just like to blame the thing that's closest to us. So we need to look and see what we can do. I think Maria linked it above, I think he's talking about the same one, unless you're talking about Pink Hyacinths. And I'll try and find it later as well if I can. But if you look up Pink Hyacinth, it's in her writing. Honestly, just look up Pink Hyacinth on FetLife and it's a writing about ethical monogamy. It's just got a lot of links in it. I've watched some of Ms. Perel's videos because I found out about her through these workshops. She has a very compassionate insight, it seems. Yep, she is very good. She's a couples therapist. That's what she does for a living. Someone I know as well, you know, like that's what she does, that she does the same as I do for a living, and she just helps with some tech talks. How does the other woman get past the guilt? Because the thrill costs more than the guilt, or costs less than the guilt. It's all about a profit and loss situation. If you're feeling guilty, that will take you into an overdraft. If you're getting an awful lot of fun, that will take you back out the overdraft. So there'll be a point where those will probably shift, and when things aren't as good and the guilt will come up and it will change. So that's something. I can tell and say, I have worries from ethics. I would never be the other woman. However, I remember being with someone who, for 3 months, who had, we had a fantastic section, the best player I've ever had in my life. I speak about him every so often. Really boring, I know. But fuck me, the guy is an utter cheat and a liar. He had a pregnant partner at home and I had no idea. Does that mean I wanted to give him up? Fucking hell no. It's the best sex affair I've ever had in my life. Do I feel like I should have? Absolutely. So our ethics and our morals, it all gets pulled into question, and I'm just as guilty as that as anybody else. And then the person that's asking this question wrote to me directly and said, the man has had a sexless and intimacy-free marriage for 10 years, and I know them enough to believe this. Maybe. Maybe you do. And I really mean that. My husband said he would take a bullet for me when we got married, but he very quickly had his dick inside somebody else. I don't think we do as know people. I would have given you the keys to my house to tell you that my 5-year-old daughter wouldn't cut her own hair off ridiculously at one stage, but she did. We know as much as we know. However, even if they are in a sexless, intimacy-free marriage, does that make it right that men go somewhere else for intimacy, or should they really be looking at how they bring intimacy back or what to do? So we do have to be careful. And I do think we believe people. I have believed people. I was about to go for lunch with somebody on Sunday, and we had wonderful conversations like, oh, this person's really cool, this is really good, yeah, I really like it, yeah, this is really cool. And then we were talking about alcohol today, and this isn't a judgment on anyone, this is about me not taking my work and everything else as well. And he said, well, do you drink? And I said, no, not really. He said, I'm really an alcoholic. And I said, no, I just don't really drink. And I said, that's very defensive, do you drink then? He said, yes, I love alcohol. And I went, well, you are an alcoholic then? And he went, yes, absolutely. And I said, oh, right, so when were you an alcoholic before? Thank you so much, King Quiet, for looking for that. I really appreciate that. So King Quiet's putting a link up. Or are you still actively? He said, I'm actively an alcoholic. And if you've got a problem with that, I'm fed up with women like you telling me that that's the reason why I won't be any good in a relationship. And I went, bye. I still want the roast, I just don't want it with him. It's where are the ethics and the morals? Mel says, I don't drink, and people look at me. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So, people are also saying, Lola says, I'm sure the guilt is not helped by the fact that women get their unfair share of the blame for relationships, which I would argue is actually quite true. What we're finding at the moment, what we find when people come into my room is a lot. So, if we go for just the bias about cis men and cis women, if we look for those biases, she's fucking mental, she's a fucking psycho. Most exes are fucking mental or fucking psychos, and most male exes are narcissists and have intimacy problems. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just not possible. Not everyone is a narcissist, not everyone is a psycho. It's just not possible. And the way people address things, when I see couples together, it really changes the dressing. It really does. It's a very different flavour. It really does change things. So the blame is a big thing. And also, I've got another couple I'm seeing at the moment. I don't mean physically, I mean as a couples therapist and as a therapist. And she just does not want sex. She's not interested anymore. She doesn't want any. She said, please go out and have someone do what you like. He doesn't want to. He wants sex with his wife. He loves her. He wants it to carry on. She is not interested. And she said, God, if I have to have sex, I will. And he said, well, I don't want that either. There is no resolution for them. It either has to be that they accept where each other are or they don't. If she doesn't want sex and he does, there is no good resolution for that unless they break up, stay together and accept it. It's a lot more complex. So he says, me personally, I don't feel guilty as me and my partner were in a relationship and the wife only pulled the plug on it because she hit him in anger in front of me and I called her out on her abusive behaviour. So if I can give him some happiness, then I'm there for him. And I hope he's there for you, and I hope he's there for you in a long time too. Jim says that about Chestnut. Lola says, why people's relationship between the other woman in itself? Actually, it's very true. I remember once reading on Facebook, I think I've mentioned this before, years ago, where somebody had written, I'm in Jesus, some of you might, if any of you go to Worthing Munch, it's in a pub opposite a station. And basically on Facebook, the person said, well, the pub opposite the station and the next block down, above the forests, lives this fucking whore. I mean, Jesus Christ, we've just defined where this person lives. Completely and utterly vulnerable. She's ruined a marriage, she should be fucking burnt alive. That's what it started with. And then what you read as you went down, I mean, I reported it straight away because it's really boring or whatever, but it then got to, what the fuck are you talking about? This person is me. I am seeing someone, but he's already broken up from his ex-wife. And then the wife chimed in and said, I don't know what you're saying. We've already broken up. I'm really happy for him to be seeing someone. She's really lovely. And then the husband chimed in and said, I don't understand what's going on here. We're absolutely fine with this. It's too late. There are thousands of comments calling her a fucking whore. And everyone is saying, no, she isn't. It's okay. So we've got to be very careful. So some of us maybe haven't found ourselves, maybe we want to find out by being with somebody else. So we get that self-exploration level, that happens as well. I think what causes is the 4-horse apocalypse, or reason why people cheat. I can't remember what they call it, something like that. The other one is it's just fucking seductive and sexy to transgress. When you sneak around and you've got yourself a little secret, it feels really nice. people who are in poly relationships, people who are in open relationships, people who are sexually non-monogamous, and people that still lie and cheat. Why? Because it's fucking thrilling. People love it. It's exciting. It's delicious. It feels nice. It's the forbidden fruit that we all want to take a bite of. And people love breaking those rules. So that happens well, and you can be caught up in that, of how delicious and sexy and wonderful it is. The other one they talk about is the allure of a life not lived, if I remember that properly, something like that. It's the allure of, oh gosh, this is the forbidden fruit, especially if it's kinky, especially if it's alternative, especially if it's something where somebody's doing something different. So it's that, oh, I never had this in my life, I really want it now. And then the fourth one is very much that new relationship energy, where we turn around and say, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to get, and this is fantastic, and I'm getting a buzz from this. Master Jim, everyone's an X for a reason, absolutely. Lola says, Maureen Shea, okay, thank you. And I remember the 3 months of being in a relationship. Yes, it's so exciting. It's such a hit, it's such a chemical buzz. And also, what we also experience is it's thrilling, it's exciting. We get a lot of chemicals from that. And that chemical high is really nice for us. And the person's written privately, again, I'm getting massive growth in this relationship, the most ever by far. What I want to say to you tenderly and caringly, and I really hope you take this in the right way, is that I hear your defense of what's going on. You must feel like I'm attacking you. I'm not. I really hope you don't feel that I am attacking you personally in any way and saying what you're doing is wrong. It isn't. We all have to make our own decision about what's okay for us, and we all justify why we're doing something. I really hope that you don't get hurt. That's what I care about. I really hope that you don't end up in a situation where it starts to hurt you. Even if you're growing and know what's going on, I would argue with the person that I wanted to be with, I could argue all the same things as you're saying. However, 5.5 years later, that person still writes to me, still tries to tell me how we will be together. And I'll say, are you leaving then? No. Okay. Right. So it's a thrill. It never is long time, yes, and that can happen as well. And then Zoe says, that's what annoys me. It's always the other one's fault, the homemaker. No, homemakers are enough. If any person is able to come and destroy a relationship, it's because one of them opened the damn door. Look, someone doesn't fall with their dick into you, do they? Like, it's not a huge accident, is it? Or their strap-on or anything else as well. So it just happens, doesn't it? And the grass does fall green. Do you know, technically that's correct. The reason that expression is there is because if you look at grass from a different angle, it has a different shadow, it has a different light hitting it, it looks more luscious, but my point is, it still is mowing, you've still got to pick up the fucking weeds and you've still got to pick up the dog shit. It always looks brighter. Plus, when we are away from a relationship without a responsibility, it's really lovely and easy. If we're just meeting someone for sex, just going to the pictures or the cinema, just having a great time, and we're not doing with life responsibility of paying bills and sort of things like with that person, these awful life responsibilities that we all have change the flavour of a relationship. 9 times out of 10 make a real difference. So that's something to think about as well, but that's really difficult for other people. And Jill says it's unavoidable that someone will get hurt. To the person who asked this, says Zoe, she had this whole chat with me, probably a bit harsher, and I do the same when I defend. Love does that to us. It does, and that's okay, and I really respect. Zoe, the person who is in this situation would like to contact you. Are they allowed to? Yes, okay. So Zoe, you could put your link up. If no one else from it, please be respectful to Fat Life, and then this person can get in contact with you privately. Mel says, I was a marriage racket, even though I wasn't married and often he was a nasty piece of work. The problem is it's complex, you know. People will cheat, people will do stuff for different reasons at different times. It just depends where it sits in your own ethics. But I'm also going to ask everybody to remember that your ethics are your ethics until they're challenged often. And this situation then comes up and you say, I would never do that. That is not me. How would anyone ever think about that? Absolutely not. And then when we're in that situation, often what happens is people do. And people do change their ethics and morals. So that's interesting as well. So I'm just saying that can happen. And Cass is saying everything you say is dead right. I don't know about dead right, but I'm trying to, what I want for this person who's asked me this question is the compassion that I feel for them as well, because they're in that situation. And once love and lust take over, that is a very interesting chemical reaction that we have. People say love makes us mad, and that is absolutely quite right. If you look at the impact of love and lust on the brain, what it does is it makes us not think clearly. It makes us feel defensive. It makes us feel justified, and it makes us do and say things that we wouldn't necessarily do at other parts or points in our lives. A year down the line, 2 years down the line. And as the lawyer says, your ethics are yours. You don't have to impose them on others. And you see that a lot. Can you separate them both? It's not that easy to separate them both, is it now? So because when we get lost in that lusty, heady sensation, as is proven by research, you make decisions that are less safe for you. Without a doubt, you make riskier decisions. You make riskier decisions around sex, money, drugs, rock and roll, everything. We make riskier decisions when we are highly turned on and highly lustful about somebody as well. So it's just something to think about for all of us, isn't it? It's all well we're going to sit in our ethical, moral high horse and say people should and shouldn't do that. Do I like people who cheat? I like people. I don't necessarily like the behaviour of cheating. I am a person who was cheated on seriously during my marriage, to the point where we even went to Dubai once and bought her a matching bracelet that we bought my mum. Fucking twat for not saying that one. Apparently that was a big thank you for work. It's quite expensive, thank you. I didn't see it for whatever reason, and I went on to have 2 more children at the time. I love it that Domino Ivory and Gallant just literally picked up their drinks at the perfect same time and put them back down together. That was so cool. It was absolutely timed. I really like that. It was really funny. So I was really hurt by that. My marriage fell apart. It got really nasty. I had 4 children under the age of 7. It was really horrible. Do I think she is to blame? No, they're still together, they're happy, that's okay. Happy. They have their ups and downs, but they have worked all of it. Thomas says, my house was paid off, clearly. Next time, fingers in the air. Whatever. It's of course it causes a lot of pain to other people, but we can overcome pain and we can manage things. A lot of people will say things like, I want to stay together for the children, it's really good for the children. Is it good for the children? I'm a single parent. I brought up my daughters as a single parent. My oldest daughter just got engaged. She's got her own place. She's renting. She's going to buy at the end of the year. Has she got daddy's money to help her? Yes, she fucking has, but she earns well. She's successful. She's capable. Is she perfect? No, she's got her problems. My next daughter down, completely different. Darcy, I would argue, my eldest is more queer, more different, and she lives with a bisexual man, more different from the heterosexual man, whereas my next daughter down is totally not different, totally. I've got these 4 amazing human beings. I'm really proud of my daughters, and I brought them up as a single parent. There's nothing wrong with single parenting. It's how we do something and what we do. Lots of people stay together for the sake of children, and that can cause issues as well for the children, and it can be really good for the children. It's an argument. No way I had to leave my ex and my children are shared between us. We do have to leave sometimes, and sometimes it's an okay thing to do. Single parents can be pretty cool and pretty okay and have great kids. It's really hard. I'm not going to kid anyone. It's really hard. I would argue it still is, even with 4 adults. It's the way it is. Okay, let's go on to the next subject. The next subject is the difference between frenzy after COVID and the general excitement about being back on the kink scene. This is interesting, isn't it? So what is frenzy? So kids can feel a bad vibe more than adults. Yes, they really can. So often what you find is kids know anyway, and they don't like the line actually. A lot of the time, kids really push it. Honestly, however, I also argue that kids know way too much. The kids that come into my therapy, women that know the stuff that's going on in their family, is quite shocking to me sometimes. How do you know that? My mum told me, my dad, what? Yeah, really, we've got this, and they shouldn't know. So I do think there's that. So why do people have frenzy? Right, so what we know from history, I've spoken about this a little bit before. So we know after the Spanish flu came in, what was interesting is that they then had a massive increase. There's not a lot of research on it. I really had to work hard to find this stuff out quite a few months ago. This is the only reason I know it. because I was curious about it. I was curious about what would happen after a pandemic, an epidemic, what would happen sexually to people afterwards? What's the research? There isn't a lot out there. There is some, however. So I was very curious about this, and I started to have a look. And what we know is the increase in sexual activity definitely goes up. In the 1920s, after Spanish flu, and 30s, there's quite a long period of time where people would have extra exciting parties. And I've spoken about this before in the workshops, when people spoke about having these things called petting parties. They wouldn't allow penetrative sex, but they would have these petting parties where people could touch and do stuff that wasn't really allowed, but they really wanted some excitement back in their lives and some sexual activity. We live in a very different world today, a very different world. So are we going to have roaring 20s again? Yeah, we really could once this calms and once it changes, we really could. And I think that's very different to somebody having some form of frenzy. So when we get frenzy, that's all about being really excited and really new. And we get this reckless abandonment sometimes of, well, one of those, and I'm 3 of those, and I'm 7 of those, and then about 4 of those, I would do all at once. Who's coming? Me! Everyone's invited, and that can lead to a lot of regret. So we get that incredible excitement, don't we? And if it's really, really great, we're like, yes, this is so cool. And we don't want to slow it down. We want to keep that intensity going because we get a lot of chemical hits again. It feels really nice. Plus, I think what you've got to look at is it can also be a real negative side to it as well. The negative side is that, who the fuck am I? Oh my God, in order to fit in, I need to do a lot of this. This is what submissives do. This is what dominants do. This is what switches do. This is what poly people do. I need to do all of it all the time to show and prove that I am incredible. And I can do all of these things, so we get a little bit lost on it. So, what are people saying? Let's have a look. Lauren's saying, I have a guess about Spanish flu. I think people are desperate to forget it. This is what we're doing, hence the silly term unprecedented, when it's exceedingly precedented to have at least one big pandemic per century. And that's absolutely true. We have had a pandemic every fucking century. I mean, I have a personal theory that Mother Nature just thinks, you fucking humans, who do you think you are, you bunch of selfish cunts? I'm wiping some of you out. Fucking get back in your box. I'm not saying I believe in anything spiritually, but I do wonder that, I think that's what she does every 100 years or so. You think you're above me, do you? And pressing delete. And so I think there's, I don't know. I do have this little theory myself. Marcy says, some parties have started but have raised some infection rates. And Joe says, I think it's already calming and changing. I'm not seeing the frenzy I was expecting. I think those things, then, Jerry, could actually be connected because what could be happening is we're still very scared. We're not out of this pandemic yet. It hasn't changed. We're being told it's completely different. And aren't we wonderful? We're all vaccinated, but we also know you can have 2 vaccinations and you can still get it. I did. I had 2 vaccinations. I still got COVID. I was lucky I didn't end up in hospital. People are still dying. So, yes, it still makes a difference. Is there a link between hypersexual behaviour, fun and bereavement? Yes, basically, yes, there can be. Anything hyper, anything to get out of the negative feeling that we're feeling. So, when you look at the term OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, what you look at in its basic is that there's an obsession, and the obsession could be sex, but the sex isn't the problem, it's the compulsion to do it. It's to get away from the feeling underneath. Is there research on it? Yes, there is. Do I have it to hand? No, I don't. If you have a look, hypersexuality, from bereavement, death, loss, you'll find it is there. Please don't look at any older research. I have a real problem with Google and stuff like that. If you're going to do research, try and find the right things. But yes, so what it is if you think about it, is we feel so hurt and we're trying to get away from it that we're trying to heighten what we're feeling, we're trying to heighten positivity, we're trying to heighten connection, and we're trying to avoid what it is we're actually feeling. Is that a good thing? No. Actually, we need to feel negativity on what it is that we're feeling. So, Google Scholar, yes, very good. So, we can also be very insecure in our identity and who we are. So, we tend to binge and to do different things and actually end up regretting half the things that we do because we think, fucking now. So, we're all about proving who we are. I knew I was kinky. Look, say I've just taken 43 fists up my ass. I thought I'd prove it to you. Like, no, maybe not. That's not a good idea. But we do get into that whole thing of yes. And we also get it used as a manipulative tool because if you're very new, regardless of your age, regardless of who you are, you do get a lot of this is what all selves do, this is what all dons do. If you'd like to review it, we get a lot of gaslighting type with some very bad intent We've just got to be careful, because we do tend to throw ourselves into, in order to be okay, I'm going to believe that wanker over there who owns a belt with 43 whips hanging off it, which are not, they've never been used, just telling me that that's what you do. That's not the case. Little baby switch, 43 fists, manual home hospital. I've had 4 kids, what do you expect? I've never had 43 fists on my house. Lola, this is what's on my mind because you spoke about it, Deb. I've been back pretty much to my regular daily life and going to events. However, I thought about what you said, and I'm mainly going to social events as well as dancing and not so many play events just to avoid that overexcitement. Of course, when temptations present themselves, I make a considered decision. That is the point, a considered decision. That is the key in what you're saying. Fuck me, have fun. I don't give a shit if you do have 43 fists up your ass. I don't care if you have a gangbang with 43 people. Have a good time, have a safe time, and have a good time. Please do use some form of protection. I feel like an old woman. I just feel like I'm promoting bollocks. However, be safe, be careful for sure. However, at least make it a considered decision so you don't have shame and you don't have regret. I spoke to a client a little while ago and she was like, oh my God, I'm so knackered. God, being at work is fucking awful. I can't bear it. I've had sex and play with 10 people in the last 2 weeks. And I was like, fucking no, you must be knackered. My youngest daughter, her flatmate, had just broken up with her partner. So she said to my youngest, Erin, oh my God, let's go out. Yes, they've been on a 5-night bender each and every night. Erin's ended up with fucking severe tonsillitis and feels absolutely awful. She just can't manage that sort of shit. There is always potentially a consequence to what we do. And hers is always tonsillitis. When she gets run down and she's not run, boom, up come the white spots, out comes the penicillin. Every single time. So we do have to be careful. Weigh up your options, have a look, and make sure you consider. I think as well we can get a little bit geese in our chest, and by geese in our chest, I mean that posturing, like, look at me, I'm really submissive, I'm doing all these things, look at me, I'm really dominant, I'm doing all these things, I'm living my life, what the fuck are you doing? I think if you have to prove it and you've got geese gagging in your chest, you are trying to prove something over and above. A lot of us can do it quite quietly, quite contentedly, quite okay. And that's something to think about too. So I think you have to think about if you've got too much of that. Plus, if you keep doing these things and you're really loving them, like Erin, you hit day 4 and you're like, fuck me, I feel so awful. I'm so low. I'm so tired after all this alcohol. What's the cure? More alcohol! And it's the same with sex and drugs and rock and roll. More sex! I know, let's just go out and do it again. Ha-ha! And it's the same, isn't it? Like if you take a load of coke, your come down is pretty shit and it's going to last 3 days. What's your solution? Day 2? Take one coke. Because it helps, and that's what addiction is all about. It's the chemicals that makes the difference. It's all about tolerance. Zoe says, my first chemistry through schools, I had frenzy and got in the bag and it isn't fun, but frenzy. Yes, and I think we can go through frenzy again. Like if you've had a period without, that sometimes that you can get a little bit of things, but you've got to be careful as to why. Why are you doing that? What are you avoiding? What's going on underneath? What are you sure about? There is a difference between that frenzy and just being excited to be back. However, I would still say, please, just make considered decisions. Just think about, I know I'm really boring, I talk about this a lot, but think about the future a little bit. Will I regret this in, I like the 5 5s. Will I feel okay about this in 5 hours? Will I feel okay about this in 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, and 5 years? And if you can say yes to most of those, then you're probably okay. What we often say is in 5 hours, hell yeah, I've got 2 cocks inside me, I'm hanging off another 3, and I've got this woman's coming on at the right time. But you might then not feel that same way in 5 days, and you go, oh, I don't know about that. Fuck, oh no, it's okay, I'll have a good time. But in 5 weeks, shit, I'm in pain because we all, or whatever it is, because you've got to think about COVID as well. But then, 5 years, you're like, fucking, I just learn from it, it doesn't matter. Just see it through, work it out. And the I'm really boring, I talk about pre-morteming, which is consider the consequences of what's about to happen. Look at it, and it won't stop you from doing anything. When we think about future me, I thought future me might like a can of Coke. I do quite like it. Do I have the time to drink it because I'm forever fucking talking? Probably not. So let's have a back of a squash for the future. Yes, it's really sensible, and I'm clever. Not taking time out to drink it, am I? So as much as we think about those things, they don't always work either. So please do find that balance. The answer is weigh up the options. Please do weigh up the options, weigh up the consequences, weigh up the costs. Look at the profit and loss. This is what it's going to cost me. It's going to cost me this much in time, energy, all these things I'm going to put into it, and that's again what's going to work for me here. And then make those decisions with no regrets, even if it means again running 300 people. I'm all up for you doing that. Have a fucking awesome time. That's really important. Just be aware of consequences. So I think as well, what's happening is we're just so happy to be back. And I think Lola said, I did not expect to feel so loud again and to feel so happy and so hopeful. It's been a surprise. It crept in slowly. And then Laurie says, long may it continue. And that's the thing. I was so happy when I could do a couple of land workshops. I was so happy when I could see the people that I care about. And, oh my God, hello. I was so happy to be able to see family, to be able to do things, to be able to go out again, to go to the pictures. I love cinema so much. I'm so happy. I'll happily go by myself, especially if it's everyone. I mean, who doesn't want a fucking great big thing of ice cream, a pizza, a garlic bread, and a Coke while you're watching a film? Who doesn't want that? Well, okay, I really want that. So I'm really happy to go alone. I love it. It makes me feel like, oh, here we go, I'm going to watch a film. Hey, I've got cinema and I fucking love film. It's really important to me. And I've missed it. And I think I've got about 13 or 14 musicals booked. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount. I just saw Heathers. I'm going to see all these things, like all of those things. I really love, like watching theatre and performance. When I went to see Heathers the other week, it felt like every single performer on that stage was so happy just to be on the stage. You could feel it through, I mean, God, it just exuded out. You could feel the joy in everything that they were doing. Can't wait. My party got cancelled, so I'm on the low. Oh man, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I bet. Can you have another one? What else can you do? What else can you do to look forward to? Jerry, don't worry with carousel in Regent's Park. I probably wouldn't. I'm not a great carousel fan. I've played Laurie in I've played County James. Actually, I've done quite a lot of those old musicals. For those of you who don't know, I used to be in my past, performing, singing, dancing. I think it shows actually on here. I'm being facetious. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of carousel. I don't think I would. I like opera and stuff in parks and things, but I'm so excited to go and see a musical. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. So that is that feeling of being alive, is it's getting out there and going to do those things. And for some of us, that's sex, and for some of us, that's play as well. So we do have to be careful. Every now and then, we should have those in the States. They are brilliant. But you can get in the States. Like, I've been to Disney quite a few times, and they have like the cinema with eating and everything else as well. I just think every now is just a bit posher. It's terribly nice. I really like it. So I think we just have to be aware about regret. I don't think it's frenzy when we throw ourselves in an excited way and we're really happy to be back. I just always want to put a caveat on that of whatever you think is good, it is really good, and not in the but, and think about will you regret it in a few days, or how will you feel about it. Make very conscious decisions, be careful. There are a lot of people as well who I think have probably found in the scene during lockdown, who come in and want to make lots of promises and go, oh my God, I'm going to do that to you. That would be really lovely. And we've got to watch that as well, because are they the right person for us? Are they really here for what they want? Or are they just experimenting and finding themselves, which I said can happen in frenzy. So watch for it around you as well. Mark says stress and arousal leads to primitive mind being stronger, which is what we were saying. We were saying earlier that we know that research proves that that's what we do. And the hippocampus holds learned behaviour based on what we did last time. So the hippocampus is kind of attached to our amygdala. It's a very important part that comes around, and it helps us make decisions, really. And it's very connected to the prefrontal and the neocortex, which are, they're different parts of our brain that work in a slightly different way to our limbic system, which is purely and utterly responsive. So we do a little bit of science. So it holds on behaviour based on what we did last time. But that part of our mind isn't rational enough to know if the behaviour last time is actually a good idea or not. E.g., binge eating. The primitive mind noticed we were stressed, noticed the eating, and when we assume that the binge eating solves the source of stress, or was the correct answer to the arousal. So, like I said about OCD, it's not the obsession that's the problem. It doesn't have to be clear or whatever. It's the compulsion to do it. And that's a response to the arousal that we feel, that we then say, I really need to do this. However, actually, the only thing that changes the brain is PTSD, so PTSD and anorexia. So it changes that response. It's slightly different. It doesn't work in the same way. Jerry, are we getting any comments or questions on Facebook or anywhere else? Would you know that?
I don't know. It's in the other room, James. I couldn't get a working separate.
No worries, don't worry, just wondered. And Lola says, just by the way, Bernie Dieter's Berlin Underground on the best cabarets I've ever seen. Hasn't it got Bill, whatever his name in that at the moment, Bill somebody. Oh, I can't remember. Little Such very welcome, thank you too. Yeah. There's some wonderful things on out there that we can really see and that we can do. And it's the same in parties. It's whatever your kink is. My kink is definitely musicals. It's not my kink, is it? Not my love, my fetish. I really love them. And that's what I used to do many years ago for a living. So I mean, really love lots when I get back and I support people. And it's the same in the fetish scene, isn't it? We need to get back and support these people. We need to make sure that people, can get back and we can do stuff. Big fairs, big fetish markets won't survive unless people attend them. And if we don't attend them, they're going to disappear. So it's really important that we do that in some way, shape or form. Okay, let's look at the last question. It's probably the most contentious. If you feel that you have a strong opinion on this, please you're welcome to say it. If you feel, I'm getting a bit of reverb from somebody. If you feel that this is too, everybody just for that for a second. If you feel that this is going to be too upsetting or too uncomfortable for you to talk about, leave. It's the best thing for you. Don't stay in for the fight. Don't stay in for the change because it's not going to happen. We're going to talk about this. I have been asked to talk about this, so I'm going to. And it will upset some people, I really understand that. It will also upset some people who actually have nothing to do with it, and it will upset people who feel like they have a lot to do with it. So it's a real variety. So please, if you're going to be upset by this next discussion, don't stay. What is the next discussion? As male superior, I'm reading this, female inferior is a validated and venerated dynamic. First of all, I'm going to question that because it isn't in all circles, right? But as it is in the kink world, so we say that these dynamics are okay and venerated is what we're after. When we think about feminism and everything else as well, that's why this question is being asked if we go for male superior, female inferior. Superior, inferior, interesting, but let's go with that in the kink world. So this is asked by somebody who's a person of colour, they're black, that's what they are, they're somebody I know, and they've asked me to discuss this. I was waiting for this.
I think it's a dynamic. I wouldn't say it's an approved, validated dynamic.
No, but I think what the person is after in this question, if this one wasn't approved, can we approve this one? I think that's what they're trying to go with. And if we're going for feminism and different things and patriarchy, can we then put that in the same sort of question? And the question is white, black, any race play, religious play, like Nazi and Judaism, credible options? Should they be accepted? That's the question. I don't agree with that idea of males being superior. No, I'm not saying that they are, but the question is if we go for that, if we're going for the classic patriarchal thing of men are more superior to women, we might disagree. However, what somebody might be saying, what we're saying in this, what we've got to think about is if they are accepted, and actually we're very against, or we believe firmly in feminism and equal rights, what about how we come in, what we do around race play, black and white, mainly, that's the main question, and religious play, mainly Nazi, Jew. What are your feelings and thoughts on that? Are they credible options? Should they be accepted? Do you have an opinion? It is a very philosophical, sociological, sexual, psychological topic. So, what are your opinions?
I don't think we should blanketly rule them out. I wouldn't want to see it. I don't find it acceptable. But if people want to do it consensually, knowingly, informed, and run private lives, that's up to them.
Okay. When you talk to people, there are quite a few PhDs and masters dissertations that have been done on the subject about race and about play. We like to fetishize certain ideas. When we fetishize certain things, it can blow up the power of it or it can take the power away. So we're doing taboo within taboo as such. What you'll find from a lot of people who write about this, especially if they are BIPOC, that's like people of colour, so we're talking about anyone who isn't white. If we're talking about people who are BIPOC, what they'll try and tell you as well is, and this is something to think about, is as a black person, as a person of colour, going into a play situation, one of the issues they have is if they meet a white top and they say, hey, will you play with me? Sometimes what's being said is, oh no, I don't want to be seen as a racist. Where does that person of colour go to play with? Where do they go? Why can't they be played with? What's happening there? That's an interesting question for me. I think this is full of, it's very different. So I think this polarises people as well. And I think it really polarises. BDSM can transform lives. It can make people feel really happy. It can also be really therapeutic in the right context. It can also be a fucking shit show. I think we have to have awareness. I think it needs discussion. I think we shouldn't shut it down. And especially if we are privileged and white, to shut it down as a conversation isn't our right. As a Jewish woman, do I have something slightly different to say on that? Not as a person of colour, that isn't my fucking experience. As a Jewish woman, yes, I can have a slightly different experience. Okay, let's have a look. What do people say? I have a Jewish self and I don't touch race interrogation plays. I don't wish to insult the memory of his relatives who died in the Holocaust. What if he wants you to? What if he says, this is the way for me to sort this? What if he says, I want to grab a hold of this? When we do rape play, what lots of people say, although I disagree with this, although not, I disagree with this, if you've met me and spoken to me before, if we are saying, I don't want to do this, I want to regain power, I don't want to feel the way I feel, not don't want to do this, sorry, then I want to do it. What is your motivation? Right, it's quite interesting. So I think we have to have really fucking difficult conversations about this, and I don't think we can ignore what is happening and the fact that it does happen. So that's why I agreed to have this conversation. And there are some really interesting, I've read them over the years, there are some really interesting pieces of research now that you can look into it. Because basically what people are saying is, hang on, there is race play around. And we know there is. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It can feel really uncomfortable for some of us. Consensual play isn't always acceptable to other people. Correct, it isn't. The same as age gaps and everything else. If you only want to play with someone because they are a person of colour or a different religion and you fetishize them instead of respecting them, then fuck no. And I would agree with you. If you are purely choosing someone down to to who they are, just because of their look or a certain situation that they're in, then you're fetishizing them as a piece of something rather than a human being. And I have a problem with that as well. So I would agree with you on that. But if you communicate and you're okay, it's up to the individuals. It is. And what if you do it in public? Do we turn around and say that Nazi uniforms are allowed anywhere on the scene? No, they're not. However, if you have a Jewish woman, let's say I want a Nazi scene and I want to be able to bring my partner in that Nazi uniform and I'm saying it's okay because I'm a Jewish woman. Is that then okay? Or is it the implication and the impact that it has on everybody else around us? I think that's also what we've got to think about as well. And that's what people are worried about, is their gut reaction, especially if somebody's white and privileged. They go, oh, I don't want to be seen as that person, I don't want to do that. However, who the fuck is that person supposed to go to? Are you saying that people who are Asian can only play with Asians and people black can only play with black? Or Muslims can only play with Muslims? Is that what we're saying? God, no. If you've got an experienced person locally to you who happens to be white and you are a person of colour and you want to play with them, racism doesn't have to come into it fucking at all. But also what I can't bear understand is people who say I don't see colour. I'm sorry, I have a real problem with you if you say I don't see colour. You are taking away a person's culture, a person's situation, a person. I don't see religion. I mean, you don't see thousands of years of my history. Thank you very much. If you are Holocaust denial, you don't see thousands of years of my history. I'll take that very personally. I really will. I'm sorry, that has to come into it. It's very controversial, let's say. It's very controversial. But we have to look at also, from the BDSM perspective, one anthropological way. If this is a consensual, erotic roleplay between people that consent, now this I really have to think about as well. Is the person doing this from a point of trauma, or experience or trying to replay things, then I've got a problem. If you might have, look, for those of you who have seen me before, if you have somebody come in who's been raped or attacked and they try to rape or attack him again and again and again and again, the propensity, the possibility for re-traumatization is huge. So if somebody's coming in to a place and saying, let's say as BIPOC submissive to a white master, mistress, whatever. If they have some trauma in their history about this, then it is not a good idea, even though they're consenting. But I would say the same for anybody, regardless of their colour, regardless of their religion, regardless of race, regardless of anything. It will be very different. So I think this is something we have to talk about. We have to look at. We have to see, how does this work? What are we talking about here? Mark says, is there a useful distinction to make between service play on hand and hate play? Probably. I don't quite know what they are. What's the difference? It's a very fine fucking line, isn't it? I mean, I'm quite happy for somebody to call me a fucking worthless, fat, huge cunt. Lots of people are very upset about that. People don't like that if I bring my weight into it, but I'm okay with it. I like that. It's not for everyone. Again, it's where's the line? What do we do? Lauren says, first of all, now is not exactly as venerated as all that letter superiority. I think the person chose those phrases because, and I could be wrong here, they are here, they can tell me. I think the person chose that phrase because what they're trying to say is if something's so unacceptable in society as such of male superiority and patriarchy versus the feminist idea of, and actually just all being equal, why do we venerate that and say that's okay? Because we do venerate it, because we do say, hey, it's their rights, they can do what they like. Why can't we use that same argument for race play as well? I think they were using that on purpose to say this is why it is the way it is. I think now domination is more popular in swinging circles than in kink ones. This is based on what I've seen reading in facts from forums. Maybe so. I don't know what the actual statistics are actually. How is that racist in any way? Why does playing with someone make them a racist? There is a lot of hypersensitivity around this, which there fucking should be. It's a good thing, and some people have gone too far. So there is that. Treat people as people. I would see playing BIPOC as that now as racism, and that's the point. But what if someone comes to you and says, "But no, I've heard you're really good at this. This is my fucking choice. You're taking away my choice." Let's say you saw it as anti-Semitism, and I come to you as a Jewish woman because that's the only thing I can talk about as my own personal experience. And would you see it as anti-Semitism just because I'm Jewish? But I'm white? Do you still then have the same opinion? What's the difference? There's huge differences. Devil's advocate slightly. And so I agree, I've seen a lot of play where top and bottom of different racial backgrounds that really occur through as part of the thing. And Lola says, I think this is complex. For example, I have an issue with sissy play and specification, but only if it's coming from a place of as a man I'm being humiliated, addressing as a woman and doing household chores. I have a problem with that. I appreciate that, Lola. And Lola says maybe some of this could be considered edge play and in public might have to come with a warning, just like DMs warn everyone around the upcoming play and has strong elements of violence, etc. Yeah. And Lola says blood play isn't accepted everywhere, even more specialised venues do hold events, some of every form of edge play. And Joey says, Lola, when I used to cross-dress and do sissy play, it was much more humiliating me because I'm only pretending, trying to be something I never could. But I've never tried to be or thought of myself as female, and I'm a bloke who looks stupid wearing ultra-female clothes and with ultra-massive fake tits. Stupid. Joey says, if that description included a Jewish idea, it would have made a difference. Maybe. And Lola says to Joey, I understand that. So, and Raven says, what does the top doing a play using racist terms get out of it? Can you do it without regret? And that, the point is, you'd have to ask the person. If someone calls me a fat fucking whore or moose and does stuff to me, will they have regret? If it's what I want as the bottom. I think it's really important to take into account what both people want. And I think we need a space to be able to talk about these things. So, the intersection where these two things meet and where we go with race and sexuality is, I think it can be a space where people can identify, where they can explore, where they can discuss, where we can look at inequalities socially, historically, and where we can really do a lot of these things. If we make it as off limits and taboo all the time in every single way, we're pushing people out the way. And if we then don't talk about it, we just get entrenched in our ways of saying this is how it is. BDSM in itself is quite an interesting thing to look at, isn't it? To have a discussion about. And we use lots of roles, lots of labels, lots of different things to say what people are and what people do. This person who asked me this question is into race play. It does make a difference. So if these things have always been around, are we replaying them for strength? What's our history? What does it mean? And I think you can only ask the people that are in it. That's one of my opinions. It's all about consent. However, my level around consent changes when people are doing it because of past trauma. So I think that makes a difference as well. So I think we do have to be really careful. If you are an active member and you love being active in the BDSM community, at some point you are going to have a look at this. At some point this is going to face you in public or in private in some way, shape or form. A lot of people say, for fuck's sake, this isn't okay. How can we have a master and a slave? Especially if colour and race come into it in different ways. And then we have a real issue. What we're then ignoring sometimes is the consensuality of that act. But then what we also have to look at is how acceptable is that in public. Now, for me, here we go. I'm not somebody who is comfortable with being someone in public anyway. I don't think you should take someone around on a lead. I don't think you should take someone on their knees. I don't think someone should strip off in a pub and sit on the floor at your feet if it looks really strange and isn't okay. So I think we have to look at these things anyway about what goes on. Saying this should not be allowed, it would just be another form of self-righteousness like every oppressive system does, ironically. Although I'm saying that a little bit now, I'm saying, for me, that isn't right. I don't know if you saw that dominatrix who tied her slave up in the pub, was it last year or the year ago, whenever it was, and oh God, like it was a pub with more vanilla people in them. That's not okay. I find it strange that MS is okay when it isn't mixed race. Consent is everything. Yes, I think if you have people who want to do this and they are of different colour, that's up to them. As long as trauma doesn't come into it. And I really, really feel strongly about that one. I think it's really important. So a lot of people ignore race play, but then we're ignoring the elephant in the room. We're not having this conversation, and it's important to have it as well. When you try and have it on anywhere like FetLife, you get a percentage of white, moral people who believe they know better than anyone else and speak for every person of colour, saying, I have a problem with those people too. You've got a group of people who say, well, morally, this is really not okay. Really? What have you experienced in your life? What do you know about that? What's your situation? Well, no, I don't. And you get that moral white outrage. I have an issue with moral white outrage on behalf of other people. But I think we should all be allies, yes, but you need to ask people how they want to be an ally. What is it you want from me? What does it look like? What should I be doing? And sometimes it isn't playing the moral high outrage and background that people have to say, well, you should all be doing this. Thank you very much, white middle class older woman who really shouldn't have anything to say on this. And I feel a little bit like that now. And the only reason I feel really ethically and morally torn even talking about this. I feel uncomfortable. I know I've done it because somebody's asked me to, which is why I keep bringing my religion into it, because that's the only thing I have experience of. I'm not a person of colour. I haven't had this situation. Have I had people say, oh, could I be a Nazi, whatever? Yeah, I have had that. I've also had people say to me, well, you've got 4 daughters, can they be involved in our play? I've had extreme things said to me, can I fuck your children? That's been said to me too. In fact, if you have children, you don't say it would surprise me. Oh God, no, I've had that quite a lot. Lola says, I meant saying we should not allow discussion. This is about the only conversation with you. Sorry, Lola. Not just Mark. I agree with what you said about doing stuff in public. The units have not consented and having mental reactions triggered in them. Yes, however, I do also believe we are all responsible for our own fucking triggers. I am fed up with going out, and if a can of baked beans triggers somebody, I can't know that. However, there are extreme things that we do know will trigger and create situations. Get educated, I think, is one of the most important things that we can do, especially when it comes to anything to do with looking at race play. Back to your first question, ethics and laws don't impose on others, same with morals. Yeah, and the same time, you can have the same thing about, May to December relationships, can't we? There's massive age gaps as well, where people say, barely legal. Sorry, does that mean legal? Or doesn't it? Yeah, but they were barely legal. No, that's inflammatory conversation. Were they legal or weren't they? Yes, they were. Thank you very much. It's interesting how we like to inflame and create situations that were barely legal. They were 18. You can have the argument as much as you like, that would stand up in a court of law. They were 18, so that makes a difference. So I assume, if I don't feel attracted to a certain race, does that make me racist? Oh, God, that's such a big question, isn't it? No, it makes you somebody who's attracted to certain things. And I think I have a real issue with people who say, I don't see colour. I've just said that before. You have to see colour. You have to see what someone's been through to understand someone else's situation. You have to see religion. I was outed when I was 5 as a Jewish girl, and it was my dad's fault. So my dad put me in school, and immediately it was a Church of England school, and the first thing he said, I think I was 5 and a bit, my sister was 4, she was just about joining school as well, we were slightly different years, and we were pulled out of assembly. And everyone went, why are they being pulled out of assembly? Because my fucking dad decided that he would say, you shouldn't go to a Church of England, anything that's to do with the church. So we weren't allowed to carol services or any of those things that were related to the church. Church of England school. Everything is related to the church in a Church of England school. You can't get away from it. So we got a shit ton of bullying straight away. Oh, that's why your nose is big. And my sister wore glasses. Oh, very speckled, Jew, weird, whatever. We got a lot of that. And my dad started it. The irony. However, I can hide because my skin is white. And I can't hide if not. I can hide those things. It's a really different experience. The cane was still around. I actually got a boy called Graham Munchie the cane because he was anti-Semitically abusing my sister continuously. He really went for that. I think actually he really liked him. He was one of those boys that decided that you dip someone's pigtails in milk rails type fucking stupid little kid principles. And I remember getting him a cane because he was so viciously horrible to her, especially about our Judaism. So, what do we do? You have to be aware of your privilege and your position, and you have to be able to have a conversation about it, for sure. It's okay to share that sort of thing among people who, by telling the kinky, don't have implicitly consented to see. It is not okay to inflict on people who aren't kinky and don't want to see it. Lola says, it says Jerry, sorry. Lola says, yes, the same week I showed my later photo of my naked wife. Okay, did she agree to it being shown? And did the other person agree? I get offered photographs of other people all the time. Do you want to see me doing this? And the question I was asked is, do they consent to that photograph being sent to me? Well, do I'm not seeing them anymore, does it? Yeah. It really matters to me. It's called ethics, it's called morals. It really matters to me. And I remember once, I've told people the story before, I was at Lamb just before lockdown. And this guy came over to me, oh my God, Deb, haven't seen the ears. That says a lot, doesn't it? Years, so on the end. This is my new girlfriend. And he points her out. Beautiful woman, fantastic cork, screw, blonde, curls down to here. Gorgeous, lovely. Oh, I don't want to fucking know, because the next thing he says was, oh my God, I was just showing her the video of the animal that you sent me. Sorry? I haven't seen each other in years. What the actual fact? And I said, I don't have time to rip you in your asshole right now. I really hope you stay around so I can, because I've got to go to my workshop. I'm definitely going to talk about it as soon as I'm down there. I have a digital policy. You have no right to show me photographs, even of my face and humanity, to anyone else without my fucking consent. Consent comes into it all the time over all of this as well. Marcy, I don't think it's necessarily racist to fetishise a race or gender. It's interesting, isn't it? So we have a lot of these things coming out about big black cock, big white cock, and we go for that. So hang on though, let's just talk about that. I've slept with a lot of people in my life of varying genders, of varying race, of varying colours. Not every black cock I've slept with has been big. Why do we do that? Why do we say that that's a standard approach? Why do we have that? I think that is in its own way some form of fetishization. I think it makes a difference. Why did he send you to a CV school? Because it was local and it was a really fantastic school, and it was a really good primary school, and it went on, and I went to I've been to private schools and I've been to state schools, so I've been a real mixture. Last gym, I still pull hair to chat up and stop that. Does that work? Have you learned your lesson? Because I said stop it. Julie, I asked Jim. And they still slapped me on the face to reject my advances. Yeah. Lauren says, now see, just finishing the point, I have been reading a study about racism and it was a revelation to find out. I think I knew this already on some level, but it turns out that there is no such thing as different races as scientific classification. Correct. So all humans are just one species scientifically. It was made up to justify slavery and possession, which is why I say people of colour. I use the word race. I still come from very old fashioned. I'm really aware of that, so I also make mistakes sometimes, so I apologise. What I would ask you all to do is look up some of the research on this. Look up some of the situations where people have written PhDs. You can look at researchgate.net. They've got 3 or 4 of them, I think, if not more. I can't remember, I apologise. But it's really worth looking at. We can't wash away racial identity. We can't whitewash it. We can't say this isn't happening or this is the way it is. It is still something we have to look at. And it is still something we have to think about. And I think it's important to think about. However, I would also argue that when we keep talking about consent, it's kind of rhetorical. There is a lot of violence in BDSM. There's lots of stuff. It's a bit of a paradox. It is violence. Consent is an important part of our negotiation. However, we see it as the be-all and end-all. And actually, it's not that either. It's not the be-all and end-all, because even if someone does consent, it doesn't mean that they consent with their free will sometimes. And it causes a lot of issues, especially if people are foreigners and make a real difference because of their trauma and their history as well. If we have, I would argue that BDSM is full of white, English classing individuals on average. Look at the faces on here, even. What you've got is mainly white people in the community. So there's always going to be an issue here. Would you only blame certain people because of what's happened in the past? No, of course not. However, you could also argue that people only have relationships because they've been harmed and hurt in a relationship and they want to fix the relationship. And the way you do that is by having another relationship. We are hardwired to have relationships with other human beings, so this is where it gets a bit heavy. So I think we have to look at kinksters of colour and kinksters who are white and see how they handle the topic of race play and how they look at it. And it is important to turn and say, so like people say, well, I don't want to play with someone because of their colour. If you're really good at that, why wouldn't you give it to somebody? I think you can see that as a beautiful and a giving thing as well. So I think that's when some of our attitudes can get in the way. It doesn't feel right for me to talk to someone who is whatever. That's a real shame if that happens. And I think it can go too far. So we're not then having that conversation properly as such. What do you all think? What are your qualms about this? Because we have so many qualms about bringing it up. And this person asked me, I was utterly like, fucking hell, I didn't want to talk about that. That's so hard. What do we do about that? And actually, what I didn't even think was, no, that's not right either. That's not right. And as soon as I put it on, I did have a few comments of, what would you know, you white middle class woman? And actually, I've been asked by a person of colour to bring this up, which I also find interesting. What's the balance here? What's right? Fucking hell. So I want to ask you, what do you all think? What should happen? What should we do? There is, to make BDSM work, we need some mastery of skill. We need to understand what we're about to do. We need to have conversations about what we're going to do. So if you want to know, I also think that you and I should learn about our history. Do you know about how BDSM came about in the scene? Do you know what it meant? Do you know what's been fought for by other people in order for you to practice your BDSM? Do you understand even LGBTQI history? Do you understand the fight that people have had for Jesus Christ, when this time again, I'm fucking in my horse now. When you all turn around and you say, oh, but I'm going to cry and it's all glitter and it's lovely, can I just tell you it wasn't always? Can I tell you that I've been spat at? Can I tell you that I've had rocks thrown at me? Can I tell you that I've had terrible situations in some of those marches when I was a lot younger, because I was quite the activist in my own way. Is that okay? Isn't it? What do we do about that? But now it's all settled and okay. Is it? I don't know. I think that's really difficult. But if we have a race play scene in front of us, it is, I think, as Mum says, it's all about listening. It's all about understanding. How is it? Do we have to understand the power dynamic that we're about to work with? Yes, we need to do that by having conversations. We need to do that by understanding history. We need to do that by looking into what that happens. Did it need to be racially charged in that sensitive scene or not? That's an interesting question. And a lot of these pieces of research talk about that charge underneath, whether it comes into it or not. If we ignore it, are we doing anyone any justice in any way, shape or form? So I think we have to think about it. I think we have to think about when we're looking at and we're talking to someone, what does this mean to you about your ancestry, about your history, about what we're about to replay? What's the consequence of this? It makes a difference. And I do think we have to think about that. Okay, so I cannot imagine personally ever being involved with race play. Somebody proposed to me in any way, humiliating me, unless it was something positive and affirming. I hope no one ever asks me, says Loma. And Zoe says, I'm aware of the spam case, I'm aware of the hate gays used to get and still do, and myself have been shamed for being greedy, for being bisexual, and I understand how wrong it was about the slave trade. I understand why the movement Black Lives Matter needs to be listened to. And Nancy says, in doing so, I won't be able to play with them. Again, that acts of attraction. Bertie says, people who say they don't see race are the worst. Absolutely. Race is a social construct, but that is not an argument for its irrelevance. You know what else is a social construct? The Gregorian calendar, etc. If you turn up for work 4 days and it said this calendar is a social construct, will not be a valid defence. And as well, if your boss refused to pay you because money is socially constructed, I guarantee you care less if it was socially constructed or not. Yeah, totally see what you're saying. And the spam case is very interesting. If you want to find out about it, it's quite easily found out. That's something you can look into. I do think we have to be very careful, and I think we have to listen. We have to say, what is going on here? What is happening here? What are we trying to get from this scene? What is it you want? What is it I want? I also think you don't have a fucking right to use it's contentious again, let's go for it. I don't think you have a right to say, but I don't want to play with you because of your colour. It would make me look like a racist. What I want to find out from that person is, have you ever played with these things before? What would you like out of this? Hey, let's have a conversation. Because that's just as bad to me in some respects. At least ask the person what they're looking for out of this and say, are you worried about what's happening around here? Because a lot of people might be. I'll tell you what, somebody comes up to me and says, Deb, I want you to fucking use your violet wand because I've never had one used on me before. I don't really switch very much, but I'm never ever going to refuse that person because of the colour of their skin, because I'm worried that makes me look like a racist. I'm not going to do that either. I'm really not. I feel quite strongly about that one. I understand that people feel differently about that. It's about, let's have a look at power. And what does it mean? And the problem is, power comes into this, doesn't it? When you look at slave ownership, it's all about fucking power. Also slightly could be like money. My qualms validating the top design enjoyment or of racial and or just specific dominant sadism as opposed to dom being non-racial sadists. Yeah. So, and there are qualms, aren't there? That's what I'm saying. The conversation is why? What's happening here? What do you wish to get out of it? Maybe do you think we should have that conversation on every single fucking thing we do anyway? Look, absolutely, this is the construct that needs to be challenged and deconstructed. Yes. Luke, this is a really complex thing for me. As someone who experiences racism in all different areas of my life, I'm being fetishised and told I'm exotic. Oh, there's a phrase. There is a phrase. What the fuck does that mean? You're exotic. Fuck off, you cunt. I think is a really good response to that phrase. What on earth do you mean? Oh, good. Am I lychee? You're going to suck me. What the fuck? Exotic. Fuck off. Anyway, right. And it turns me off messaging back. Really? I'm not surprised. I've had thoughts of race play verbal, though I know this is something that would be really damaging to me, even though I like verbal or cross and line this. I really knew he was a genuinely good person. If you think something is going to damage you, please don't do it. You know, the damage is done if we experiment with it. So as you can say no immediately can stop things, but then the damage is already done because we respond to things because of the owl. So actually, unless you really know that something is going to cause you damage, just don't. So take your exotic self off and don't do it. Fucking hell, I hate that word. If someone is into it, it's been discussed mutually, it might make a difference. I definitely hate the I don't see colour thing. I agree with you. I don't see colour, you're just like a human being. Wow, you've just negated thousands of years of history in one sentence. That's quite impressive. My ex said that along with I need to be careful with verbal in case I bring your race into it. What? Just don't say it. I mean, it's not that hard. Which is being one raising it and may happen. That definitely made me cautious. I'm not surprised. Lily says, Luke, not okay when I make it your responsibility. I'm so sorry, showing consideration and being a decent human being is too much of a burden to you. Is it? I'm addressing this X in my imagination. Lola says, some things can be too sensitive or vulnerable to mess around with. If in doubt, don't. And I agree with that. Jeremy says, I hope it isn't racist to just admit that I find certain people attractive and certain others not so attractive, and a white person from a middle class background, that's the sort of people I find attractive on the whole. You know, culturally and society wise, we do tend to find what we've been brought up around, whatever, attractive in different ways. I am a very middle class Jewish woman with an interesting history, Poland, Russia, and Switzerland. So I have a very interesting mix in my history. I'm first generation British on one side, I'm third generation on the other. I'm an immigrant in a lot of ways, really, certainly from a hereditary perspective. And it's just, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because actually, I see colour, I see religion, I see lots of things. I fucking love a variety of human beings for different reasons and different forms of attraction. I'm demisexual. If you and I click, that's what it's about. It's a meeting of the minds. It's not a meeting of colour. It's not a meeting of history. It's not a meeting of any of those things. Do you fuck my mind? Then I'm really interested in you. And that's what I want from a human being, regardless. But we do have to look at history. And history often resonates. It causes different issues, which means where do we go in our future directions? And that's when we have to think about that. We often condemn racist content in porn. We often condemn without exploring how is the pleasure derived? Why is it derived from this? What's going on for the people? What's happening? I mean, as a therapist, I'm much more interested in why, however, a lot of people don't like that. So you can analyse and we can have a look, and we can have a look at the representations that are made, but we need to work out what's going on underneath. There's a lot of anxiety and stress around this, which is why I say we need to look at education, we need to look at understanding, we need to look at okayness. If the question was, is race play acceptable? Is it okay? And for me, personally, what I'm always going to go with is if both people want to do it and they come from a healthy place without trauma related to it, then it is a perfectly acceptable form of play. If those people agree, that's where I come from. However, that is a minefield because, you know, Luke, if we like an exotic human being for just being exotic, how about just like Luke for Luke? In fact, I do like you, Luke. I think you've been in nearly every time, like you're somebody who involves and does all those things. And I'm not going to say I don't see no exoticism either. Fucking hell. But it's interesting, isn't it? It's when we fetishise something for the wrong reason. And that's what the issue is. However, I also feel that way about kink. If we turn around and we say, oh, I like that person because they're a dom, maybe not. I mean, those person, should we find out who they are? Let's find out, you know, just got to be really careful about that sort of shit. Mark says, are there evolutionary reasons to be attracted to people with large genetic differences to themselves? Yes, there are. So when we look at evolutionary sex and biology, the reason we like difference is we're looking for oppositional DNA. If we look for oppositional DNA to ours, then your offspring stands a better chance of survival. So we will always look for the opposite DNA, and sometimes that can include we can sense genetic difference. Often people will look for a partner who has a bigger difference to them. So yes, it can come into it. It does make a difference. I agree with that, Debs. If they agree and communicate, great. But if it has to be mutual, we agree. And Mona says, I agree in essence. The only thing I won't want to is admit in any form, especially on a public profile, because it's not considered in, it's not considered, in my opinion. It can also come from a dubious place. I don't know for sure, so I don't want people to be coming across a small bit of rejection, which just adds to the microaggressions that they already face. It's about respect. Everything's about respect. If it's my own personal preference, then no need to advertise it. I can barely express that minimum height requirement. That feels bad enough, if that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I often get stuff shown to me on FetLife. People say, oh my God, have you seen this? Comment on this. Have you seen this? Comment on this. Why the fuck do you want me to comment on it? Like, Jesus, what have I got? I've got a lot to say, but like, I find that quite interesting. Like, Deb, comment on this. Deb, comment on this. Look at this person, what's happening? And I get sent a lot of Nazis because people know I'm Jewish. That get them taken down, Deb. You know, like, what the fuck can I do? We've all got to complain about these people, haven't we? Deb, the arbiter, if you do not enough. So yeah, I think this is such a contentious issue. It really is. I wouldn't want somebody coming at me to play with me just because I'm Jewish. If somebody wants to play with me and Judaism comes into that in some way because of how we are, well, she isn't in the podcast yet. All right, I will.
We're talking about the fetishization here.
Yeah.
You know, on another level, if I meet someone, I really like them, I want to play with them, it doesn't matter what colour, size, shape, almost gender they are. We are talking about in the mind fetishization, almost wank for.
I've met a lot of people, a lot of men over the last 4 or 5 years. I've been single for quite a while. I talk to a lot. Jesus, I go through a lot. And I find it really interesting, like trying to find a partner. I'm kind of casual about that nowadays because it is such a pressure. It's an interesting one because I would like a partner. I don't need a partner. I would like a partner. They need to add to my life. They need not to take away from it. On average, I want a male partner. Am I queer? Yes. I tend to be heteroromantic, so I'm more after a male partner than anything. And one of the things that really puts me off is, I wrote about it the other day when that guy wrote to me, we're getting on so well. This was a really nice conversation. Then he said, so, you know, what do you wear to bed? And I said, I've got this night dress that really helps with night heat because after having chemo, I get a lot of night heat, so that really helps, or I can't go naked, it's one or the other. And he said, it's like bare minimum. I wrote about this the other day. Bare minimum. You must wear a negligee or a baby doll with suspenders and stockings every single night. That's a bare minimum. And I think I wrote something back in, I think my fucking bare minimum is someone's a decent human being. Like, I think we might not be on the same page here. Fucking hell. Like, it's so interesting, isn't it? Like, that's your bare minimum about being with somebody, then I'm not a human to you. I'm something you're dressing up. I then become a fetish. I've met other guys who say, I just want a corset. I've met other guys who, can you just make sure you buy satin negligees, have a satin shirt, and wear a satin skirt? Or can you wear heels all the time? No, they fucking hurt my back. I don't want to wear heels. I might wear them in bed around my fucking ears, although that's a bit harder than a fat woman because I can lie anybody in that position. But, you know, I'm happy to be flipped over or whatever. That fucking hell. But, do you know, if they want this, they can buy it. I don't want to fucking wear it. This is the difference. I'm not a fetish giver. I'm not something that's just going to be dressed up or taken that way. And I think that's something we have to think about. So I would like to thank everybody for being really understanding about this conversation. I would have loved people to have lots and lots of opinions and to share and to talk about it. I think this is really hard. I think a lot of people do. It is very uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. So we are talking about people if you like them, regardless of everything else. Exactly. Lola, I understand as well when it comes to service, for example, or non-sexual play. I also do not have any preference because physical attraction does not come into it. That's my writing. Maybe buying it for themselves, probably, yes. Thanks, Tess, that's really nice of you to say. The actual mocking of my cultural Indian heritage accent. Oh! Luke. The actual mocking of my cultural Indian heritage accent out of play with him made me realise that it was something underlying. That can make me fucking cry. That's what that paragraph does to me right now. I feel overwhelmingly sad. I think the person asking for it needs to be in a comfortable enough position with themselves to accept it first. It's fucking awful. Maya, thank you for discussing this. Sorry, fuck me. Always do a great job. I don't. Oh, Luke, hugs and love you, Tuesday. Luke, I wish I could hit this person with a stinky fish. Luke, you're not with him now, are you? We've had quite a few conversations about him, haven't we? We have. Oh, like, that's just quite shocking, isn't it? Like, why do, actually, it's not. That's what's so sad. It is not shocking. That's what's so awful about a lot of these things. They're not shocking, are they? They are sadly around. Thank you for being open-minded. Thank you for the conversation that we've had today. I think it's been a tough one. I don't think it's been easy, so I appreciate everyone being quite kind about that as well. Next week, I've already been asked about separation anxiety. If you've been spending a lot of time with somebody and then you're not going to be with them anymore, how do you deal with separation and how do you feel? So we're going to be looking at separation anxiety. And funny enough, we're going to go back to quite a few things that we spoke about in the lockdown and other things as well, but we're going into it. So we'll have a look at that. As Indians, we do face that a lot in outside kink. I agree. I really agree. Zoe, to that private message, I will let you know. Have a look. Really interesting workshop. Thanks, Bev. You are great on the way. I'm not, am I? Listen, I've probably said some things that really aren't right as well. If I have upset you, educate me, please. Tell me. I will make mistakes, always. That is really normal. I'm a great educator. Oh, thanks, Bev. I really appreciate that. Raven Cat, thank you for a great workshop. I want to be educated. I think it's really important to ask to be educators too. If I've got anything wrong for you, especially if you are a BIPOC, then fucking tell me. Talk to me. And then we can really, really talk about these things. I wasn't going to acknowledge when the person asked if that really important to me. We had quite a long conversation about how to, I was saying that, but what's your question? What's your question? What's your question? Because it just became so big and it's really hard. And I would think a constructive public discussion on sex life could be super helpful, but they get derailed. I agree, they always get derailed, and they always get derailed with the extremity, especially of that white middle class woman who says, well, we need to do this for everybody. Oh, here you go again. There you are. You always make me think. That's why I'm here. Thanks, and I really appreciate it. And Nikki, thanks. So really lovely. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, it does good. Thanks, Debs, about the verbal comics too. Thank you, everyone. Anytime, Luke. Kim Kraut, thank you, Debs. This was a great workshop. Thank you all very much. I wish you all well. And I will see you next week. And I'm going to start with separation anxiety. And thanks from Finland. How exciting. That's so cool. I like that. From people around the world. I will see you next week with us. If you want any other questions, let me know. Poppy's going to be here with me next week, so we might do it together, sitting side by side. That'd be quite cool. Can we do some tips of DBT? Yes, okay. So separation anxiety and use of DBT. Poppy will be here. It's one of my favourites. And in fact, what the problem also is get a set of cards. We can do some other things as well. We'll do that. Time for a round away. Thank you very much.
I might take a trip down and join you for next week.
Yeah, come on, let me try us in here. That'd be amazing. All right. See you later, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for your no judgment and tolerance. I really appreciate that. Thanks. Bye.